What is going on, everybody? Today is Thursday, December 14th, 2023. Listen, we have the holidays approaching up and all of that, but we've also got a lot to talk about in the football and all throughout the sports world. Even with baseball, Shohei Ohtani signs a 7-year, actually a 10-year, $700 million deal to go just travel only a hop and a skip away from the Los Angeles Angels to the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's a Dodger now. The Dodgers were a team that won 100 games without him. Now you add Shohei Ohtani, and really the sky's the limit. Now there is a lot of talk about him not pitching in some of the games. And is he worth that type of money? Is he worth that huge, significant of a contract? He's already one of, or in a certain ranking of one of the richest persons in the world. Let me know in the comment section what you think. And yeah, like I said, we just got a lot to talk about in all of sports. So with that being said, as y'all know, that's textbook. So let's talk about it. Shohei Ohtani signs a 10-year, $700 million deal to stay in Los Angeles, but it's not with the Angels. It'll be with the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers were a 100-win team without Shohei Ohtani. Let's not. Don't get me wrong. He is the best player in baseball. Without a doubt. No questions asked. But is he worth that type of contract? 10 years, $700 million, and there's a lot of talk or reports that he's not going to be pitching. Now, one of the characteristics that makes Shohei Ohtani one of the best baseball players, or the best baseball player in the MLB right now, is that he's this fantastic pitcher and hitter. And for those of you who might not know a whole lot about baseball, putting it into different terms, it's like having, in the NFL, it's like if you had Patrick Mahomes with someone like a Micah Parsons on the defensive side of the ball combined. Because not only can Shohei pitch, keep you in the game, keep the game to at least 2 runs, keep you in there, he can also hit and get about 2 home runs or a home run himself, a couple hits sprinkled in there as well. Is he worth that type of money? If he's not going to be pitching, I don't know. Listen, he is one of the greatest hitters in baseball, if not the greatest. But let me know in the comment section what you think. And with him being already that's a massive contract. He's going to be one of the richest persons in the world. Who do you think is going to be the first player in sports, and in any sport, to sign the first billion-dollar deal? Now, I think this was either a year ago or maybe it was just a couple months ago. There was this club, the soccer club, that offered Mbappe this massive deal. And I don't know the extent or the dollar value that they were willing to give him, but I know it was something massive. It was going to break tons of records. He decided not to. But let me know in the comments as well, who do you think is going to be that player to sign the first billion-dollar deal? If you were to ask me, and I think the person playing right now that has the best chance to do it, I think it's going to be Ellie De La Cruz. Just because his rare athletic ability. Listen, baseball is not a sport where, at least from what I understand, baseball is not a sport where athletics or anything like that is emphasized as much. I mean, you see, even just watching baseball, there's some people who are clearly unathletic, and if you were to put them in any other sport, they most likely don't make it. But with De La Cruz's athletic ability, I mean, he has insane speed. If you were to take someone in the realm of Tyreek Hill and put him in baseball with his speed, he doesn't necessarily have to get a hit. He just has to put it in play in the infield, and he most likely gets a chance to be on base just because he's that fast. So Ellie De La Cruz, I think his athletic ability now is there some things, he's a young player. Are there some things he's gonna have to learn a little bit about the basics and more extents of baseball? Yes, absolutely. But his athletic ability, it's like if you were to take someone from multiple sports like soccer, maybe football, basketball, put them into baseball, I think De La Cruz could be that player that signs the first $1 billion deal. And of course, all of y'all out there, let me know what you think, what's your opinions. I appreciate your participation in my podcast. Those of you who are in the comments, like these videos, I appreciate it a lot. And with that being said, make sure you follow me on all my social medias. All the links to my social media will be in the description. Make sure you check that out. Like this video, hit that subscribe button, turn on post notifications, hit the bell. You don't want to miss any of the content I have coming up, particularly when it comes to in the NFL season, and of course basketball is going to be heating up. You don't want to miss any of the draft content I have coming up in that sort of deal. Now, I'll be talking about basketball right now, and I usually don't talk about basketball during this time of year just because the season's still young and the season is still early. It's way too, some teams are not even reaching their peak yet. A lot of them are just barely getting even into the flow. By about March is when it really starts to ramp up, and we know, okay, who's a contender, who's a pretender, what's happened after the trade deadline, whose team has made the most significant immediate impact for their team. But I'll talk about the in-season tournament, and I think, in my opinion, the in-season tournament was an absolute hit. It was, you got to see these teams play kind of like in a playoff-esque type of atmosphere. And if you're a competitor, you compete no matter what. Even if it's just for bragging rights or whatever. In the case of the in-season tournament, you had financial value. It was $500,000. Players were going to be awarded. You were going to get a ring. There's even talks of maybe it's a banner. Those rumors, I necessarily don't know. I just heard about those. So you compete no matter what, and it was a hit. You saw, and we saw young stars really develop, like Tyrese Halliburton. The court designs were kind of cool sometimes. Maybe some of them went a little bit too over the top. But congratulations to the LA Lakers. Listen, this isn't the NBA championship, and everyone else knows, right? The larger goal at hand is to win the NBA championship. But congratulations to them. It's something competitive. If you're an athlete and you're a true competitor, you compete no matter what, even if it's just for bragging rights. So congratulations to them. And I'm not talking about the Draymond Green instance. Listen, it's really hard to defend the guy if you're a fan of the Golden State Warriors. If even if you think that sometimes he's officiated in a Draymond rule sort of way, but it's just gotten out of hand. There needs to be some significant either help for him or suspension that's gonna say, hey, what you're doing is out of line, it's out of hand, and the only reason you are going to know that it's out of line, out of hand, and not do it again is if you get a significant suspension. Last night, it was reported that Draymond Green is suspended indefinitely. Now, they didn't say the amount of games, but then they also included that his agent, Rich Paul, the Golden State Warriors, their GM, are going to get together to find out a solution to get him some type of help, counseling that he needs. I hope that works out for Draymond. Is he, when you look at his model of game and craft, is it something that's going to draw a lot of attention for a lot of people? No, it's necessarily not. But when you look at his his awareness and his how well of a student of the game he is, that is Hall of Fame worthy. And then you look at his defensive side of the ball, understanding the assignments and the whole student of the game aspect of it, like how he understands. I believe he was talking either it was in the post game or on his podcast when they were in the playoffs against the Denver Nuggets. He knew Jokic was going to go to that move late in the game, which when he got the steal, Golden State went up, or Golden State eventually wins that game. Huge turning point. He knew that when Jokic is in the post, he sort of tends to bring the ball to a certain point. He was able to poke it out. So you see that, like I said, that mental awareness and to be a true student of the game. All of that to say, he's a really good player outside of making buckets, the dribbling, all those flashy plays. I hope the counseling works out for him, and but it also has gone to a point where you, like I said, you can't defend him anymore. It's obvious, and it was clear and obvious that he was hitting Nurkic. I mean, he swung, hit him in the face. He's been hitting people in the groin. He's been, you know, kicking people in the chest or stomping on people in the chest. He was trying to choke Gobert, or he wasn't trying to choke Gobert. He had literally Gobert in a headlock. A lot of people are making jokes saying he needs to go to the WWE, but you just hope he finds the right type of counseling and help for himself. Now to go and to switch to the NFL, the biggest story, the one that everyone is talking about. And my apologies for having this podcast be out late. Talking about all the games that happened Sunday, even though it's Thursday. My apologies. Had some other things I had to get going on, but all is good. And I like to create these podcasts and talk about the games a little bit later, just because more stuff develops and you get a more unbiased and unoverreaction take and feel for how the games played out. But talking about the biggest story in the NFL that happened and went down on Sunday, Patrick Mahomes goes over the top, and we necessarily don't see that type of reaction from Patrick Mahomes. Kadarius Toney was offside, and I'm gonna tell y'all the real reason why Patrick Mahomes is angry, and it's not gonna be because Kadarius Toney was offside. Now, is he upset at that because it took away a fantastic play, and to be honest with you, I really don't think that play was scripted. I think it was just Travis Kelce kind of, freestyling out there. And listen, watching that game, when you watch on the TV broadcast or the TV copy, they give you the down marker with the blue line, and the first down is either yellow or orange. You could see, and I was saying, well, Tony's offside. He needs to get back onside. And the rules when you're playing football, especially at the wide receiver position, you line up, and if you look to the sideline and you give the ref kind of like a thumbs up, or you tell him, "Hey, am I on or offsides?" 100 or 1,000% of the time, they will always tell you, "Yeah, you're good." They'll give you a thumbs up. You're onside. That's good. Or you need to scoot back and get back onside. He doesn't. And Tony, you watch the game or you watch that play over again. He doesn't look back to the sideline. He's clearly off. As soon as the ball snapped, they throw the flag, which is what the ref is supposed to do and should do. Listen, did it take away a fantastic play and all of that? Yes. But then the Kansas City Chiefs were going to leave Josh Allen a minute 12 left. And so I was like, oh, they scored way too early. We all know this story with Josh Allen. Maybe that Chiefs defense can give Patrick Mahomes 14, 15 seconds to make with some kind of magic to make something happen. Because even if they did score that touchdown and the play counted, you were going to give Josh Allen a minute 12 left. Everyone in the arena, everyone watching the game knew what was going to happen next. But the real reason why Patrick Mahomes is upset, like I said, it's not because of that call. But his reaction right there was the result of how the general season has gone so far. They've lost to the Green Bay Packers. The streak that they had against the Denver Broncos, that's over with. They haven't looked like what we've seen of the Kansas City Chiefs in years past. A lot of that is because who else do they have at wide receiver? A lot of the games that they lost, especially against the Philadelphia Eagles, the Detroit Lions, were because the receivers couldn't catch the ball. So that reaction from Patrick Mahomes, which is something we usually don't see from him, is he really competitive? Yes, absolutely, but he never goes off on the refs like that. It's the result and the combination of what's gone on throughout the season. And you have to remember, Denver Broncos beat them in their last matchup. If Kansas City were to lose another game and Denver were to win one, Denver is now the division leader. After Denver started 1-5, which is something we never thought would have happened. But this is where the Kansas City Chiefs find themselves at. And I hate to sound repetitive when I talk about this team, but unless they find something at wide receiver who they can rely on. Rashid Rice has not had some nice production. He also did fumble the ball. I think it was in the third quarter or the fourth quarter of that game. Who else are they going to find outside of Kelsey? Who else is going to step up that they can rely on a week-to-week basis? They have a good warm-up game against the New England Patriots, or sort of a mini bye week. But considering that the Chiefs have lost 2 in a row, you know that they're going to come in full focus, Patrick Mahomes and all of them. So I expect them to win that game. And you look at their schedule, from here on out, it's pretty easy for them, with maybe the exception, of one game. But that's the reason why Mahomes is upset, and we saw that type of reaction. Now to talk about the New England Patriots, because there's been a lot of rumors going on and a lot of talk that this is Bill Belichick's last year. Should it be? Bill Belichick, we know his model of work right now. And when Tom Brady won that Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a lot of Bill Belichick's model of work was kind of torn down or tainted a little bit. And, it left a smudge on it. Is it right for them to move on from Bill Belichick with what we know about him? Immense, fantastic defensive mind. Defenses play really well. But I think the thing that's really hurt Bill Belichick and these Patriots post Tom Brady was their draft choices. And you have to remember, Bill Belichick is the general manager for this team. That has to be incredibly hard to be the general manager and the head coach of this football team. If they're not going to move on from him, you have to say, okay, well, we're going to take away your general manager duties. I think at this point in time in Belichick's career, that's just too much for him to handle. But he's also the general manager, so he's responsible of this team. As a head coach, he should know what this team needs. And you look at the draft choices since Tom Brady's left, it really hasn't been great. Now, have they find some people that can really step up? Yeah. And do they do well in free agency? Yeah, they do pretty well when they find guys that, in his favorite words, do your job. When they find guys that they can have do their job. Whenever you see these types of, I guess, breakups, and with Bill Belichick, like I said, what we know with this model of work, sometimes these things just play themselves out. I don't think it's going to be a immediate firing, like where Robert Kraft goes in there and tells him he's fired, just because I think they have more respect. They're going to do it in more so of a respectful way for Bill Belichick to say, hey, let's just mutually agree to part ways and that sort of deal. But since I've been watching football, I never in my life would have thought that the Patriots were going to go away or move on from Bill Belichick. But this is where we find ourselves right now. And like I said, sometimes these things just play themselves out, and you've kind of overwhelmed your stay for a while. So the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely have taken beat down and beat down in the past 2 weeks. It was a beat down against the San Francisco 49ers. Now against Dallas, you lose by 20 points. What's going wrong with the Philadelphia Eagles? Is it time to panic? In my opinion, yes. I think it's time to panic for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'd say the one plus side or the one bright side to all of this is, they've won a majority of their games, right? They have 10 wins on the season. They still control their destiny for the NFC East, clinching that division. If the Philadelphia Eagles just win all their games, they have the Giants twice, they have Seattle, and then one other team who I can't think of right now. If they were to just win those games, they clinch the NFC East, regardless of what Dallas does. Now, like I said, the plus side in all of this is, well, they've played a really tough schedule. For since that Kansas City Chiefs game on, it's been a brutal schedule. They've had to play a lot of tough teams. Maybe this is just the wear and tear of all of that. Because in the first half, this is a team that just didn't look like they were ready to play. They didn't look like they were prepared. Then he came out with no fire, no intensity, no energy. Defensive line was getting bulldozed, pushed back. Offensive line all year hasn't been able to get the run game going. Now, the plus side is a lot of the teams that they have with their next 4 games aren't really good run defense teams. So to prepare yourself for the playoffs, or to get some kind of momentum going in the run game, this is the perfect opportunity from here on out because you have Seattle this week. And in your last 7 games against Seattle, though, you've been 0-7. Now, different team, different times, and all of that. As I mentioned with this team, especially, on the defense, that secondary and those linebackers, if I was a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I would be scared, and it would keep me up because I just know that CeeDee Lamb, Dak, and Dallas, if we were to meet again in the playoffs, are going to do the same thing to us once again. Our corners, Slade, maybe he's getting older. Maybe Bradbury's getting older. They're having to rely on a lot of young guys in that secondary, and especially with the linebackers. That unit, if the Philadelphia Eagles don't win the Super Bowl or achieve any of their goals, that's going to be the reason why. It's because their linebackers and their secondary have a hard time making tackles, and open field tackles, they miss a lot of them. And then when you look at the offense, maybe it's just a Super Bowl hangover for this team in general. But the offensive line is struggling with the run game, where Jalen Hurts is turning the ball over, whether that be interceptions or fumbles. We're having a hard time. A lot of the creative things that they had with Shane Steichen and what they've done so far, that's not translating over. Now they do have new coordinators on both sides of the ball. New defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator. But the 3 things that's going to keep this team away from their goals: can't run the football, linebackers, secondary, can't do their job, can't make plays. And there you have it for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now for the Dallas Cowboys, it's looking like them and the San Francisco 49ers as being the 2 best teams in this conference. Without a doubt, most likely those teams meet in the NFC Championship game, so it'll be a rematch from earlier in the year. But Dak is playing on another level, MVP type of level. Offense really is, they had, earlier in the year, they had woes and struggles in the red zone. Those are non-existent now. They're a team that offensively, it's the chunk plays. So if a team and a defense can limit their chunk plays and put some pressure on Prescott, it can make some things interesting and give Dallas a struggle. Because you heard Chris Collinsworth in the booth, he was talking about Dak Prescott was telling him he's found this new way to play quarterback in the NFL, and he's so surprised that in this West Coast offense that what he has to do is, after the second read, if it's not there, just take away, run, maybe find something that you can, maybe find a pass that you can throw for someone open downfield, or just take off, gain 4 or 5 yards, and keep yourselves ahead of the chains. I'm interested to know what if a pass rush gets to Dallas, because Terrence Steele on that offensive line, that's their right tackle. That's probably their only weak spot. But what does it look like? And it'll be interesting to see if a team can put pressure on Dak, have some blitzes thrown to him, because that's not what they've seen a whole lot. Like, he hasn't been pressured. Um, the thing against Dallas is they don't beat teams with winning records. Well, I mean, they beat the Philadelphia Eagles, and at the time, the Seattle Seahawks had a winning record. But getting pressure on Dak, that'll be the interesting thing to see, because in years past, what's ailed him is if you get pressure on him, he kind of sort of panics in that pocket and makes some costly throws, and then from there on, he's kind of fidgety in the pocket. That'll be interesting to see. But the Dallas Cowboys are riding high right now. Gotta give them all the credit. Now, speaking of another team that doesn't beat teams with a winning record, the Miami Dolphins. You asked me, the Miami Dolphins are the biggest frauds in football right now. Now, I usually don't have takes like that usually. I like to keep it even keeled, but you ask me, the Miami Dolphins are frauds. If they play a team that is hard-nosed and physical, it's over with. It's a wrap. The Tennessee Titans, what do? They run the football. They play physical on defense. Everyone does their job. They dominate, and they assert their dominance in the trenches. That's what they do. You watched that game earlier in the year. Miami Dolphins they just scored 70 points against the Denver Broncos. They're this, high-flying football team that's fancy. They have all this new stuff. They've got innovation with all the motion and stuff. That's their identity offensively, right? But in the NFL, especially when it comes to this time of the year, you have to be that football team that can run. Because if you can run the football this time of year, you've got better than a 50% chance of making a deep run in the postseason. Look at what the Tennessee Titans did with Derrick Henry that year. Look at what the San Francisco 49ers did when they made their run from the wild card. I think they were the 5 seed, and they went to the NFC Championship game against the Rams. Almost would have won that game. Look at those teams. What they do well is run the football. That's one thing Miami doesn't. Now, A-Chain, Mostert, yeah, they get rushing touchdowns. All of that, though, is on the outside. What do they do between the centers and the guards? That's not their identity. That's not their strong suit, as being a physical football team. Now, defensively, for them, yeah, they have Christian Wilkins. He's their run stopper, and he's a phenomenal football player. That defensively, they have that physicality, but it's just on offense, because everything else is the explosive play, downfield. But where's that physical element? And like I said, in that Buffalo Bills game, you watch that game over again. It was the physicality, how fast they were able to go to the football, Buffalo was. And then when you pressure Tua, almost kind of similar to Dak, when you pressure him and get him outside his comfort zone and having to go outside the pocket, or maybe he's thinking about having to go through reads a little bit quicker, and you speed him up, what plays can Tua make outside the pocket? When that happens, it's kind of the play's over with. Now, the Miami Dolphins, they do have some injuries to that offensive line. Have a recent injury. They lose their center, Connor Williams, for the rest of the year. Prayers for him that he gets well and better soon. But like I said, when you speed Tua up and when you get him outside the pocket, he just doesn't have those athletics to extend the play or to escape a pass rush. It is almost, when I watch and when I look at it, it is almost kind of Bryce Young-ish. I'm not saying they're the same player. I'd obviously take Tua right now. Now, there's a different conversation about what Bryce has and all of that. But when you look at their size and their physicality, or what their athletic ability limits them to do, I've been on record saying Tua has, everyone says, oh, well, with Tyreek, Tua doesn't have that strong of an arm or the arm strength to really get it out there. Well, he can. Is it to the extent of Patrick Mahomes and all that? No. And if you're arguing that, you're gonna win that because Patrick Mahomes and all these other Josh Allen, all those quarterbacks in those atmosphere, they're gonna have a stronger arm. But for Tua, it's like I said, almost Bryce Young-ish, where if the pocket breaks down and he has to make a play outside the pocket, he just doesn't have that speed. You also with the ailing offensive line, you also question if they can keep him upright and if that's going to keep him healthy. That's the sort of thing. Listen, I hope the Miami Dolphins prove me wrong because Tyreek Hill is playing at an insane level. Tua is playing really well right now. I think he's top 5 in the league in passing yards, or he might lead them right now. I hope they prove me wrong, but that's just how I see it right now and how it feels it's going to end. Tommy DeVito is the perfect quarterback for New York, and he's perfect almost in the sense of that, like, you look at New York sports history. From, the Linsanity run. Jeremy Lin was going on this incredible run. He was putting up massive points. He was hitting game winners. All of that thing. It's like Tommy DeVito. So we could maybe call it DeVito Insanity or any kind of funny, cool nickname you want to call it. Because it is almost Jeremy Lin-ish. Tommy DeVito, we hear the story. He's their third string quarterback. Now he gets inserted into the starter role because of some injuries. You hear the story about, he's Italian, he's from New York, and he lives with his mom and dad. His mom makes his bed for him. All of that. And now he is balling for the New York Giants. They have won, I think it's 3 straight football games. Give credit to Tommy DeVito because, listen, it's like this year is the year of the backup quarterback, more so than any other year. We're seeing all the injuries that have happened to the starters this year. And we're seeing these kind of Linsanity type of runs from these backup quarterbacks. Whether that, like with Josh Dobbs. And then now you're getting Tommy DeVito. Now Jake Browning is playing really well. I have never seen an NFL year where we've had 3 backup quarterbacks have these type of Linsanity runs. It's impeccable, and we have to give massive credit to all these guys because what NFL teams ask for in the backup is not that you put up, similar stats or equal stats to the starter, which some of these guys are doing and as a matter of fact, going a little bit above, but that you're keeping the team in the game and quote unquote, game managing, which a lot of quarterbacks don't necessarily like to hear. But that's what you want from the backup. That's what these guys are doing. Massive credit to all of them. Tommy DeVito, Brian Daboll. A lot of people were calling for Brian Daboll's job, saying, "Oh, they've got to fire him right now." And I'm on record saying, no. This team, that New York Giants team, they overachieved. Daboll takes in 1 year. The team is going to this playoff run. They play really well. Daniel Jones plays really well. He gets that contract. You having to allocate all those funds to him now. They overachieved. But what he's done with Tommy DeVito, Daboll's offensive geniusness, massive credit to all of them. Cam Newton is making news by saying that the quarterbacks like Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, and Jared Goff are game managers. Now, I'd mentioned earlier that the term game manager, when applied to a quarterback, it's kind of like disrespectful in sort of a way. You're saying that the quarterback really doesn't have to do anything bizarre, that they just have to check it down, keep the team in the game. When they're on a drive, if they can get a field goal, that's good. A touchdown is even better. That sort of thing. Just keep the team in the game. Don't be the reason why the team won the game. Just don't be the reason why they lost. That's what game manager basically means for a quarterback. Now, I'll agree with the saying Jared Goff is a bit of a game manager. But does Jared Goff have some moments where he's putting up numbers? He's got multiple touchdown games, 300 passing yards. Yes, but those are also very rare, and we saw why Sean McVay moved on from Jared Goff. Because in that 2019 Super Bowl, Jared Goff couldn't do a single thing. He was missing throws. He was the reason why that team lost the game. Now that year he had a really good year, but you you really felt like even all that year and in Jared Goff's career, eventually at some point in time, whether it's with a trade or you're gonna draft some rookie, you're gonna move on from him at some point in time. Now with Brock Purdy, it's so easy to say that with Brock Purdy, he has all of these weapons, and with any quarterback, you need something to have. You just can't be Michael Jordan with the Toon Squad and put up all these points and be the main focal point, because that just doesn't happen. Eventually, they're just going to key in on you and all of that. If you don't have an offensive line, what quarterback are you? You're barely going to be upright in the pocket. If you don't have receivers, you're not going to have the stats. The drives are going to go from 3 and out or no scores at all. Brock Purdy, it's hard to say now. And do they rely on Debo and all of them a lot? Um, do they have Shanahan to really be that offensive genius to put them all in these unique matchups and scenarios? Yeah, absolutely. So it's hard to say that now, just because when you watch the film on Brock Purdy, he does the little small things that maybe we don't see or some people don't see or take for granted really, really well, like anticipation, timing throws, getting to the top of the drop back and getting the ball out. Those sorts of things, knowing the mental awareness of the game of, okay, safety's over here, they're bringing this safety down, I've got one-on-one out here, I'm going to utilize it, just wait for the timing and the anticipation, balls out accurately. So that's what he does. So it's hard for me to say things like that about Purdy and Prescott, just because we know that the type of year Dak Prescott and Purdy are having right now. They're two MVP candidates right now. But I also think Cam Newton is talking from a different era too. I grew up watching Cam Newton play, and when Cam was playing, he really didn't have that much help. He didn't have any help, really. You look at that year when they went on to the Super Bowl. I mean, who were his offensive weapons that he could really rely on? Ted Ginn, but also Ted Ginn was a little bit later in his career as well. And then eventually, when Cam Newton, he took a lot of unnecessary hits that the refs really should have called, and they should have been flags, no matter what. So by the time Cam Newton got Christian McCaffrey and all of that, it was just a little bit too late. And the roster overall, outside of that year, they had a phenomenal year, especially their defense. It wasn't really all that great or something that they could be competitive with. Now, Cam Newton is talking about from a different, generation or era of quarterbacks. Because when I was growing up watching football, this is where I'd have to agree with Cam. The quarterbacks that were in the MVP race were usually going to have anywhere from 40 touchdowns or up. Like Brady and Manning were absolutely going for 40 touchdowns, 4,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, 55 touchdowns, 5,000 yards, breaking records, setting all these things. They're not quarterbacks that just right now at this season have 25 passing touchdowns with 4 games left and 3,000 passing yards. Like you can see, it's a lot different era, obviously. And the performances of these quarterbacks compared to back then, really, especially from the top and these MVP candidates, it's nowhere near from years ago. And that's really all I have for y'all on this podcast. I have much more tomorrow, Friday, to talk about the Thursday night football game. We've got bowl season coming up, a couple of games, some really small bowls, but they're still, most of them sometimes are really entertaining. Then we've got the Saturday games, Denver and Detroit, and then a couple other ones which I can't remember right now. But it's going to be a fun weekend. It's going to have lots of sports still, even though college football, the regular season's over, but the bowl games are still just as fun to watch. Make sure y'all check the description. Check out all the links in the description. Follow me on my social media. The links to my TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, they'll all be in there. So make sure you give me a follow. Like this podcast, like all the other podcasts that I've had before. If you like them, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, turn on the post notifications. You don't want to miss any of the content I have coming up when it's talking about rebuilding your football team and what your football team necessarily needs to look for, what deals they could do in free agency, where they need to improve from the draft, prospect rankings, draft profiles, a lot of film rankings that I'll do, talking about the little nuanced details that separates this player from the other, and that'll go into my rankings as well. But God bless y'all. Have a fantastic and wonderful day. Enjoy the weekend. Spend time with your family and all of that. Just enjoy it. Like I said, God bless y'all. Take care. Have a fantastic day. And until next time,